Well, there is now a chance that the UK may stay in the European Union after all. The High Court has ruled that the government cannot start divorce proceedings without a vote by members of Parliament. Now, the government is going to appeal to the Supreme Court, arguing that the people already have decided to leave the EU earlier this year in a binding referendum. But whatever happens right now, this crucial legal decision is shaking things up. Take a look at the pound sterling. It rose by more than 1% immediately after the High Court's ruling was announced. Of course, though, the currency is still down around 20% since the Brexit vote, mostly over fears that Britain will lose business. Now, McGregor-Wood has this report from London.
3 judges said the British government does not have the right to start Brexit negotiations without the approval of Parliament. For those who brought the matter to court, it was an important constitutional victory.
I've never challenged the result of the referendum. In fact, I voted for Brexit in the referendum for the sole reason that I wanted power to be returned from Europe to the British Parliament. But I did not think it was right for the government then just to bypass Parliament and try to take away my legal rights without consulting Parliament first.
The judgment, I hope, when it's read by the government and they contemplate the full judgment, that they will make the wise decision of not appealing, but pressing forwards and having a proper debate in our sovereign Parliament, our mother of all parliaments that we are so admired for around the world. Thank you.
For Theresa May, this is a significant setback, but so far, her team shows no sign of caving in.
The government is disappointed by the court's judgment. The country voted to leave the European Union in a referendum approved by Act of Parliament. The government is determined to respect the result of the referendum.
May's spokesman said the government still believed it has the right to trigger negotiations and will appeal to the Supreme Court. Planning to invoke Article 50 by the end of March would continue. If Thursday's decision is upheld, the British Parliament will have to be involved in shaping those talks, and that may, at the very least, slow the whole process down.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined by the financial journalist, Michael Wilson, who is in London. Michael, if it does come down to a vote in the British Parliament, do you think MPs will vote to stay in the EU?
I think if you look at the numbers now, the vast majority would vote to stay within the EU. But let's not forget what's actually happened since the referendum, and let's not also forget that on that piece of paper, that the citizens of the UK who actually answered that referendum, it said that the government would act on the basis of the referendum. That's about democracy. That's the kind of democracy that people have fought for over 1,000 years in this country to actually achieve. So the real question is it the prerogative of the people, or is it the prerogative of Parliament? That's what's at issue right now. So to answer your question about MPs, I think a lot of them, although, as I said, the majority wanted to remain, will go back to their constituencies and actually think, hang on a second, how many of my constituents, the people who vote for me, actually wanted to leave? How did they manage? What did they say in their referendum? Because politicians, local politicians, have not had to face that question. So to answer your question, very, very difficult to tell right now. OK, which means more uncertainty for the UK. One indicator that we do know about and has taken a very firm stance is the pound. It actually rose after the High Court decision. Why do you think that it did? Well, I think it rose because that's what everybody expected it to do. They think that somehow the UK will be safer within the EU than going its own course. But afterwards, the pound actually did fall. And as you said, don't forget it's fallen almost 20% since the referendum. And many sources are saying here that they expect the pound will fall even further. So that was just a temporary blip. Ironically, the weird thing is that today also the Bank of England raised its inflation expectations for the whole of the economy. The growth figures are actually much better, even after the referendum, facing Brexit, than they were before. So there's a lot of conflicting views about what's actually going on in the UK economy,
yes.
And it's not as bad
Michael,
as actually people said it would be.
A quick soundbite from Mark Carney now, the Governor of the Bank of England, who you just mentioned. Let's just listen to him for a moment.
Since August, demand growth has been materially better than expected. And the MPC now projects the level of GDP to be 0.7 percentage points higher by the end of this year. So what did we miss? And what have we learned about the adjustment to Brexit?
Well, Michael, what did they miss? I mean, Carney was predicting some bad things, and actually the economy's held up rather well.
OK, so he did two things after the referendum. Interest rates went down and another batch of QE was launched into the economy. Some people are saying OK on interest rates, but put more quantitative easing in, which actually makes people's, for example, pensions worth a great deal less, was probably a mistake. He's seen as quite a safe pair of hands. He got an endorsement from the Treasury to stay on right through his course the other day. So I think people are saying, yeah, you did quite a good job in actually calming the horses, if you like, whilst that referendum result was being digested by the public. But the fact is that the economy is still growing. What's actually happening is that those people who export are benefiting hugely from a weaker sterling. Those who import, yes, inflation is increasing and so on. Prices will probably rise. But generally speaking, the big backbone of the UK economy, small and medium enterprises, small and medium companies, are doing extremely well. And why wouldn't they, with interest rates being where they are?
OK, Michael Wilson in London, thank you for your analysis.